The top 5 cities that are considered most vulnerable are all in Asia Pacific. They are Dhaka, Manila, Bangkok, Yangon, and Jakarta. If you take the top 10, the majority of them are in Asia as well. So this region is particularly vulnerable. When you think about vulnerability to natural disasters, 3 factors are at play always. One of them is the sheer exposure of the people to the disaster. Second is the degree of vulnerability they face in that exposure. And the third is the size and the nature of the disaster itself. All 3 factors are serious in this region of Asia and the Pacific, and they have been getting worse. The population pressure that has been growing, especially in the megacities. Poverty has come down in the region, but the sheer numbers of the poor still remain high. And the hazard itself, the amount of water in a flood, the degree of the storm, all of this have been getting increasingly difficult, particularly in this region. Politicians have to take note that natural disasters are no longer an interruption of development, but really a threat that could derail the progress being made. The Bangkok case, the biggest in terms of the damage caused, 45 billion, which is 13% of a country's GDP wiped out in 1 year, that is truly extraordinary. This earthquake and tsunami in Japan, the numbers were staggering. The loss in GDP, loss in output, they are beginning to show up. If 3 or 4 decades ago, the total loss is 1.1% of GDP, that has tripled or quadrupled in this last decade. Some 25 countries had democratic elections. Very few have climate change on the platform. I think 3 factors are at play. 1, it's considered a long-term issue, so we don't worry about it now. 2, it's a global issue. It's not my country. 3, well, we have to grow, and if you take action on climate change, maybe we will grow less. On all 3 counts, the evidence now is the other way around. It's not a long-term issue. It is here today. It is not someone else's problem. What you do about climate change matters. And we now have come to the reality that if you did not act on the environment or climate, you will not grow. Urbanization brings great benefits to society, but they also impose costs. It's a matter of balancing the two. There is clearly such a thing as an optimal or a desirable degree of urbanization. One would be to take action on the tremendous environmental degradation that are affecting and making floods worse. A second, earthquakes also are a tremendous crisis issue, and there, better zoning, building codes, and we have lessons from all over the world that suggest that taking action on those matter. And from rich and poor countries, there are good examples. In Bangladesh, a flood in the 70s cost some 300,000 lives. A flood of the same intensity 3 decades later took less than 200 lives. And there it's a whole institutional framework, communication, early warning systems, not necessarily high-cost activities, but those that really saved lives. Those need to be implemented. And at the city level, local level, it really pays to have participatory processes. Dagupan in the Philippines is an interesting case of a town that managed with transparency. Last but not least, in many of these floods as well as earthquakes, the most vulnerable are often women and children. And so a particular focus on how they and their plight can be addressed really pays off.